More for the net. Welcome, everyone. Dominic, can't this a little bit? No, the screen. So good, right there. Too much. A little bit back, right there, and good.
All right, here we go.
And we're back for another edition of the SuperMex International Show. Thank you, Woody, for that cool intro. Like, it's not even an intro. It's a beginning on-air movement. I like it. Always movement. You got inertia, fundamental force of the universe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so no guest today at all, no panel. And for those that have been with us for the last month and a half or two, since I started on Spotlight on the Valley on AM 1680, roughly about a month and a half to 2 months ago, we have been conducting a fact-finding information gathering series on education and Central Unified Education on the west side of Fresno in particular. And we are at close to culmination of those weeks of work. And I'm really happy that of the people that we had. We had 4 students initially: Juan, Kat Kazarian, Jaden, and Gabby Martinez over the first show that we had that was, specifically the SuperMex show. And there's, out of that group, 2 students that are current, 2 that just recently graduated. They're student athletes. They are good students academically on campus. 2 of them are at Fresno City now, competing academically and athletically, but obviously handling the business in the classroom academically. So after that, we had Mike Cruz, a parent in the community, daughter and son in the system, one at the high school, one in the lower grades. The following week was Rachel Ann Scott, and she has children at Liddell Elementary, multiple. I think she has 3, if I'm not mistaken. I remember back to that time, 3 students. And so the following succeeding week after the students and the 2 parents was an administrator, former administrator and current teacher, Tim Swain. And he has 24, I believe it was 24 years in system academically. So he was a teacher and an administrator. And if I remember, Swainbo, if you're out there listening, you can correct me later. Always looking for correction if I'm wrong. So he was at Central High School initially before the split. He was at Central East after the split. He was at El Capitan Middle School as an administrator to begin his administrative career, and then he followed up and finished administratively with Rio Vista and the northern portion of our school system. And then currently he is at class now teaching kids from 7th through 12th in math, and they are an adult, or I won't say it's adult, but it's alternative learning, basically kids that need a different format. Yeah, some that are in trouble, some that just need something different than 90 kids in a classroom and they're not getting the attention that they need or the education that they need. So those are my guests over the last month, and I am extremely appreciative of the fact that they came on here. One point to note on that: it's not easy getting on air and putting your views and voice out into a community that could dissect and have issue or find fault with anything or whatever it is you say. That's part of the process of putting it on record and putting it out there, putting it out there, not just live on Facebook, which we are now. And thanks to my Facebook followers and Instagram followers now. So getting adjusted to all these media platforms, but also, on radio, we're on AM 1680. They have a listenership that's all over the valley and larger and growing. And so we have more than a few that are not specifically, say, just Central Unified, but Fresno Unified, Clovis Unified. I've had people from all over and other school districts that have called saying, hey, what, we kind of deal with that too. We're dealing with the same education issues, not specifically, hyper specific to, Central with regard to some of the things that we're dealing with that nobody else is, but some of the things that we discussed today and lay on the table for you, you will definitely find in other school systems. And so I want to be 100% clear before we begin this meat and potatoes, no bones, no holds barred, just dropping it on the table, honest and straight to the point, issues that we have and we're going to discuss. But they're endemic to education in general, and they affect more than just a few school systems and a few school districts. So it's across the board. So I'm by no means saying that, you know, our system in Central Unified is the worst or not good. It's good. We're good. But there are a lot of inequities and lacks of in education in general, because education is not what it was when we first began this process of a free, I repeat, free compulsory education for our citizenry and our student population, our youth. It is way different than it once was, some good, some bad. And obviously, it's real simple. For those of you guys, before, you know, front load you right now, if you don't like it, then as usual, you don't have to listen, and my apologies to you. But, you know, this is the show that's going to deal with issues that are not good. As an old drill sergeant used to tell me, it's like, it's real easy to tell how great everything is, but it's really, really difficult to go after the things that are not great and do something about it. Again, not just complain, but actually come up with some type of solution or legitimate, conscientious, and thoughtful analysis of things that are not going properly or good, and then addressing them with also thoughtful, sincere, and lucid solution to problems. And that's where we are. And that's why we did literally over a month of just that analysis, hearing, listening to all sectors of our community. And by the way, it's not obviously not just for the last month. I'm alumni deep in our community, and I've got a lot of friends and family all over the community going back many generations. And I listen to everybody, and I kind of take all of their thoughts and info, and then I synthesize and try to digest and come up with solution that addresses as much as possible. And the God's honest truth, it's never going to be all. I mean, it's just not possible. I mean, I put a lot of time and thought into what we're going to go over today, years worth of thought, years. And it's still not enough. You know, it's just never enough. But damn it, we're going to take a real nice hard swing at it and hit the ball really, really hard. Hopefully nobody, you know, just catches it. I'm using baseball analogy now, but it's going to go somewhere really, really hard. And then it's up to us to decide if it goes out of the park or if it's a triple or a double, et cetera, or we just get on base. And I'd be happy if we just get on base to begin the process of change and movement forward and progression. Like I said at the top of the hour, it was inertia, you know, fundamental force of our universe. We are inertia at this point in our system, Central Unified, and it's about where we move that body, where we move that mass. It's not stoppable now, but we need to move it in a positive direction, in a good direction. So what I'm presenting to you today, Central Unified community and education motivated and interested people in general, are 9.5 theses on what we need to do, or what is there now that we need to address in our community. You can tackle all of them or tackle one of them. I'm happy if you go after any of them, because that just means one more person addressing issue. And again, they're going to be things that we've talked about over the last month and a half, but they're going to be issues that we've had in our community going back 21 years at least, and maybe even longer, but they're still there. And so we can talk about how great all the things that we do have are that are positive, outstanding, but for 21 years, 2 decades or more, we've had issues that we've not addressed at all, or we've cursory addressed them and haven't gotten the positive result in return. So that's what we're doing today. I don't know how I'm going to get to all of them, but it's going to be, some of it's rehashed for those of you guys that have listened to the show prior, but it's 9.5. We'll get to that another time, or a little later, maybe, for those of you to get it. If somebody out there is listening right now and you get why I have 9.5 theses, give me the name and you'll get a free SuperMex t-shirt. And for those of you guys that are seeing, they're pretty cool. I'll say so myself. It's a cool design. They're in gold on a black shirt. What am I thinking? The dry fit shirts that are more comfortable than just regular cotton. So for any of you that are listening and you know why it's 9.5 theses, you'll get a free shirt. But you got to post on Facebook Live now, and I've got to see the name. in the conversation. First one that does that will get the shirt. Okay, here we go. Number one, and it's at the top for a specific reason, and it's so much and so heavy. We've already kind of talked about it, but it's so much, so heavy. It's so pertinent and important to the process of education that it is absolutely and has to be the number one priority in our education and in our district. And I want everybody listening, including those who work within the system, to understand this is with gravity and sincerity that we talk about this now. I'm entirely convicted on these issues. I've had people ask, well, you're extremely passionate about what you're talking about. I said, I'm beyond passion. I'm convicted. It is with conviction that we need to move forward on some of these items. This is number one. Here's the theses, singular thesis. Central high school students are receiving an inferior education due to a loss of their instruction time in the classroom. Now, qualify the statement. The statement is that we are receiving an inferior education, specifically at the high school. We can go into other, but for right now, this is something that's easy to address or that we have a solution for. An inferior education in the form of what Tim and I have the last couple of weeks have spent quite a bit of time on, and I know I spent a little bit of time on that prior with some of the parents and students. Being out of classroom, not actually in the seat, not actually learning, is to me absolutely unforgivable. It is the principal reason why students walk through a set of doors every morning to a classroom. It is the reason why the state funds our school system and the education system in general. It's the reasons why we are taxed as taxpayers in a community and a state. It's so the student can sit in a class in a seat and be educated by the teacher that is paid to do that job. I cannot ask a teacher to do their job adequately if the student is no longer in the seat for whatever reason. And in this case, obviously, it's addressable. There are things that we can do about it. But point of fact, this isn't debatable. This is not subjective at all. This is entirely to the point. We have students that are not in class learning every single day at Central High School. Every single day. Not because they're out playing hooky like the old days, bitching, sick, just didn't feel like going to school because their parents didn't allow them or didn't care if they went or not. Whatever the reason, they're not in the seat. It's not because an administrator's not doing their job at site. It's not because the teacher's not doing their job. It's because our system dictates that there will be students, no matter what, every single day in Central Unified at the high school that is not in a seat to learn because they're moving to another campus, spending 10 to 15, 20 minutes every single day moving to another school for a different class, for whatever reason. But point of fact, they are not in the seat. They are not learning. My education homies out there, please, please, educators, parents in general, this is absolutely unforgivable, inexcusable. It is the reason, the purpose that education exists. It's to educate a child in a classroom, sitting there for X amount of minutes that is allocated by our system. In our case, I think it's like 75 minutes or something like that. Other schools, it's 60 minutes or 45, or depending on your period of class. We're going to come back to that one because that one is singularly the most important issue that we can address and that hasn't been addressed adequately or in any fashion since we split the two campuses in 1996. So for 21 years, this issue has persisted and we've done nothing about it, or we've not done anything adequate. It still remains, we've not solved that problem. And I don't know about you, but 21 years of a problem is way, way too long. There's absolutely no excuse for it. And to say that, oh, well, that was here before we got here. Listen, nothing personal, but if you take the job and you want to run a show, then you accept the responsibility of the negatives that come with it and you address them and you don't make excuses for them. In my world, the military world, I would have been bucked down in rank or I would have been booted. Would not have been acceptable for me to make the excuse that I cannot do the job because it was hard before I got here. Don't take the damn job. It's that simple. Go do something else. That's number one, and I'll reiterate. Central High School students are receiving an inferior education due to a loss of their instruction time in the classroom. And again, this is a generality. It's as a whole. If your little son or daughter Bill or Billy or Jose, Maria, whoever is getting a great education, then more power to you. But there's 4,300 students roughly at the high school, and they're not all getting that quality of education. And the number's not just a few. It's staggering. It's at least, I can only guess, at least half of the student body, probably more, over 4 years, has had to shuttle or bus for other reasons to get to other schools. Okay? Number two, student education and their families are adversely affected by overcrowding of campuses and overflow schools. We discussed this a little bit. I'm going to take those off for a second. We discussed this a little bit when I was on Spotlight, and I just saw Jeff, you just buzzed in. Outstanding. How you doing, brother? We talked about this a little bit at the very beginning of my time back on air about a month and a half to 2 months ago. And we talked about the growth and in many ways unchecked and unmanaged and incomprehensive growth on the west side of Fresno, specifically in Central Unified School District, and the houses that are popping up like little boxes all over. It's like a Legoland. We're literally just dropping down boxes left and right. Okay, and because of that, our student population is increasing and continuing to increase in a dramatic fashion now, not just recently, but over many years now. And going forward, we are the targeted growth region for the Central Valley and for the city of Fresno in particular. We're only going to get more. I'd actually like, personally, at this point, I'd like to see a slowdown. And I'm going to tell you why. It's great to say, oh, well, look at all these people we have moving into our community. We're not educating our kids properly with the number of kids that we're getting, because it ends up being the end result, more kids in the system, larger schools, larger class sizes, lesser education. It's that simple. We have not gotten a handle on our growth for decades, yet we continue to grow. How the hell do we get a handle on our growth if we're just going to continue ad nauseum and never actually catch up? That's something that needs to be addressed and looked at now. So number two, student education and families, by the way, adversely affected by overcrowding of campuses and overflow schools. I'll do this one thing. In the plan that was laid out a couple weeks ago, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that has looked at that plan, there were two options for the high schools and the high school situation. One of them, regarding boundaries, had Harvest Elementary. For any of you that are at Harvest or in that range, and you'll understand in a second, for Harvest Elementary, if there were a new high school on the current proposed site on Grantland next to the stadium, Harvest students would not go to that high school, or excuse me, Harvest would be bused away to another location. So my general point is the boundaries are going to get crazy. I won't say that there's a perfect answer to boundaries. I think everybody knows it's a band-aid that we need to rip off and address. I think everybody understands that and knows that. We really, really need to do that. So it is going to get crazy, but the point is that it will adversely affect families. I mean, we've seen that in the past where a mom who lived right across the street from the elementary in front of her has to go and get her child on a bus that goes to like Madison or another overflow school. I won't speak too much to overflow schools. My wife and others have a better handle. The system itself has a better handle on overflow and what that means. But it does mean that some schools are impacted. They're too small. I'll get to that a little further down in one of the subsequent thesis points. And we don't address them adequately, so those schools are overcrowded immediately, and kids have to be bused from a neighborhood school. And that's almost a running kind of joke. We talk about wanting neighborhood schools, but which neighborhoods, really? If I'm not mistaken, because like, for instance, Biola, oh man, I didn't even do that. I will do that in a second. Biola, which is almost entirely its own little community and neighborhood. You have kids in Biola that are bused away from the school that is literally in the middle of their community, right in that little area. If for some of you, and some of my people in Central Unified don't even know where Biola is at. That's another matter, a disconnect in our community that we've never solved. We're getting bigger, but we're not staying unified. And you can quote me on that. Somebody used the unified and orange thing a long time ago. I'd hazard a guess to say that was entirely inaccurate, because we're not entirely unified. We have subgroups within the larger We have sub-communities within the larger. We have people that are in the district now that are entirely new to this community that don't know there are other communities that have been here since the last turn of the century. So student education and families, their families, adversely affected by overcrowding of campuses and overflow schools. I'll flesh that out also in a second, in a bit, maybe not here. Number 3, we're on number 3. Central students are losing, quote, students are losing quality educators due to overcrowding, roving, instability, and inequality of education between school sites. And that's a big, heavy statement, a big, heavy thesis, but it is entirely true. There are substitutes and other newer teachers, brand new teachers that have come into our system. I think Tim Swain talked about that when he was an administrator. He lost a really high quality potential educator for his staff because she simply didn't want to stay because it was overcrowded, or in some cases, and definitely at the high school is definitely intimately aware of this, they rove. They literally push a cart between classes because they have no class of their own. These are people with 4, 5, sometimes 6, 7, 8 years of education having to push a little cart between classes because they have no place to call home, and it adversely affects the student education in the classroom in many, many forms. Tim and I definitely hit on some of those points. A few of them off the top of my head were one guy rushing from one side of the campus to the other, and they barely get there in time before the bell rings. But, oh, heaven forbid, they're there in time to actually set up, prepare, have lesson and lesson plan ready to go as soon as the kids walk in. No, when the kid walks in, the teacher walks in at the same time, and they're having to do everything on the spot. It's a loss of instruction time. And as I said in my first point, loss of instruction is something that we can do something about, and it is the single most disruptive force in our education system in Central Unified. There is nothing more pertinent than that. So again, number 3, Central students are losing quality educators, teachers, the people that we pay to educate our children, raise our kids, and turn out great Americans after a K-12 education, are losing quality educators due to overcrowding, roving, instability in the form of not knowing where they're going to be or where they're going, and inequality of education between school sites. And we'll get to that a little bit further down the road. But obviously, not all Central Unified schools are created equal. That is a fact. And I'll argue that point with everybody. It's nothing personal, any shot at any one individual, but it's a cold, hard fact. You go drive out to some of my homies out at HK, Madison, even Biola. I was there yesterday. I got to get to that in a second. But the older schools clearly look like older schools. We'll get to there in a second. So inequality of education between school sites, overcrowding, roving, and instability is the reason that we are losing quality educators that we should be keeping in our system. Our education system, we need to make our education system the number one system of choice for the best and brightest coming out of our education schools, not just at Fresno State, but anywhere in the state of California or anywhere else for that matter. We need to make it a desired place of residence. There's a novel concept. Please come to our community. Please work and teach our students, work with and teach our students, and then live here because we want you to be a part of who and what we are. We want you to entirely invest in who we are so that you can make us that much better. That sounds almost like a 1776 plug, right? Central students are losing quality educators due to overcrowding, roving, instability, and inequality of education between school sites. Factoid. Number 4, prioritizing class and school size reduction. You can see how these kind of work hand in hand and they can be solved. Prioritizing class and school size reduction will benefit our students and teachers immediately. That means immediately in the classroom, at the point of attack, the relationship between a teacher and a student and their class and the education environment would be better immediately if we reduce class and school size. We're just way too big. Class sizes are continuing to go up. Our school size, and definitely at the high school level, is 40-something hundred. That's a small city, I've told you. With small city size, you get small city problems. And I don't even want to hash into that because we'll be here for 5 more hours. and I've already knocked out 25 minutes, and I'm on number 4. Not doing too bad. So we need to make that a priority. Educators, CSEA, my homies in California School Employees Association, that's anyone that's not a teacher or a nurse, psychologist, counselor, etc. That's my homie cleaning up the kids' mess. That's my lady at the desk greeting people as they come in. The lunch lady. I had a great lunch lady at Teague. She was the nicest person on earth, made me feel good every day, but I didn't have a lot of food to eat. So those people, in addition to teachers, and then of course our community, we need to make this a priority. We need to actively tell our district, our system, our board members that we elect that you need to prioritize class and school size reduction because it's going to benefit our students immediately. That's fact. That is just fact. There's no subjectivity at all to it. That's why it's a thesis. It's a point. You address it, you look at it, you evaluate it, and you decide if it is good for us. But it is a clear fact that with smaller class sizes and smaller school sizes, there is not only a better education, but a better sense of community and a greater investment in our child and their parents and, as a whole, our community. That's something we really, really need to get back. We're losing it by the second. That's number 4. Prioritizing class and school size reduction will benefit our students and teachers immediately. Number 5, it may go over the head of many, but it's extremely important because it's a look at where our priorities are. And I just pointed out to you one of them, 4. We should be prioritizing number 4. But here's one that I don't think should be a priority, and it's easily addressable, easily attacked, and done something about. Quote the Raven, bureaucratic, bloated, and top-heavy salary increases for upper administration CEOs is hurting our ability to educate and doesn't place priority on students. And that's where this priority should be, period. So what do I mean? It's real easy. I won't stay all day on it, but it's again, a fact. As of right now, the top 4 people in our system make over $200,000, one of them, and the other 3 are roughly in the range of $150,000 to $160,000 a year. And they're continuing to increase. Here's an example. Last year, teachers and staff, educators and support personnel throughout the system received 4%. If I'm incorrect, I'm sure my wife's going to let me know about it when I get home. 4% of an increase, adjusted obviously to account for inflation, ever increasing in our country and a bunch of other things. But 4% increase was the raise for our people that are in the trenches doing the dirty work day to day. So I want you to consider that because that's where I go ultimately. Who's doing the dirty work in the trench? Who's the one sitting there, time, energy, effort, lucidity in working with our students to give them the education that they deserve? Not the ones at the top. Nothing personal, but you're not. Okay? So teachers and staff got 4%, and I want my community to really, really get this. 4%. The 4 people at the top also got 4%. Like, okay, what does that mean? Real simple. If a teacher makes in the neighborhood of 40,000, maybe up to 80 or so, that's kind of and I'm not an expert on our teacher salaries, I'm not, but it's roughly in that range. New teachers are going to be in the range of around 40, give or take a few, and topper end teachers are going to be in the range of 70s to 80 for being here for like 20 years and having maybe a master's and a whole bunch of other things, right? Those get factored in. If you're making 40 to 80K, somewhere in that range, your 4% at 40,000 is not the same as 4% of 200,000 or 150 or 160,000. In what world is that okay? In what world is that even rational? 4%, if you're looking at 4% for a salary increase, and you're getting the same 4% that the janitor's getting, that the lunch lady's getting, that the secretary's getting, that the teacher is getting, how do you look yourself in the mirror in the morning and say it's justified to continue to increase your salary in a system that, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, I want everybody to remember this before we're done and after we're done. This should be about public service. We're educating our children. Our most precious commodity, by the way, we love talking about those things, but we don't actually love practicing them and placing them in application. 4% of 200,000 is a hell of a lot more than 40,000. And let's walk that back. Maybe another staff member's making 20, 25. Okay, and they get 4%. Where the hell is that fair? Where is that equality? So I'm going to repeat. Some won't like it. My apologies to you. But it's wrong. Period. Bureaucracy. That's where we are now. Bloated, bureaucratic, top-heavy. It might fall over. That top-heavy. Salary increases for upper administration CEOs. And you're saying, well, they're not CEOs. I call them that. They're chief this officer, chief that officer, chief whatever officer. Might as well be. We're treating them like a Fortune 500 company. Might as well give them, packages that are in excess of millions of dollars. Might as well. Let's just do it. Because we're heading that way anyway. You're making six figures in excess and continue to increase, massively because of the percentage that you're guaranteed or you're getting every damn year no matter what. Never mind the perks, $700, $800 car allowance. I can go on. There's actually more. But I don't have all day because I got to get through my 9.5 theses. Number 5, halfway there, folks. Bureaucratic, bloated, top-heavy salary increases for upper administration CEOs is hurting our ability to educate. It's a trust issue. And it doesn't place priority on our students. If anybody can credibly, lucidly sit in front of me and argue that increasing a $200,000 salary by 3 or 4% is placing priority on our students, brother and sister, we gotta have a talk. I gotta hear that, and I will make time. I will make time for you, and we'll sit there, and I've got to listen to this one. Got Ocean's property in Arizona, by the way, if you're interested. Number 6, we're clipping here. Number 6. Inequality of schools results in a lack of cohesion and unity in our community. And forgive me for digressing 20-something years, but it was something I learned in primary leadership development course. It's called something else now, but it is the Leadership Academy for potential leaders in the United States Army coming up to the enlisted ranks. It's getting your stripes to learn how to lead people and prepare them for combat. In my case, in the infantry. And you go to school and you learn the lessons that we've learned as a country. United States Army infantry and the United States military in general, there are things that we learn, that we are taught. This one goes directly to that point. Inequality breeds lack of cohesion and a lack of unity. That continues, has maintained, and is moving forward as a practice in our community. Again, I kind of hit on this a little bit prior in one of the earlier thesis points. Some schools have been left behind. They've clearly been left behind. There's a novel one, okay? Leave no man behind, right? Don't leave your buddy behind. We've left our buddies behind all over the damn place in our community. We have schools that clearly look like older schools. We have schools that clearly look like they're from the 60s or 70s. We have schools that clearly are not actualized fully in modernization, technology, or damn it, just appearance. They clearly just look old. That hasn't been addressed. I will be a little forgiving and a little bit nice here. There is something of a plan to move that forward, but I will point this out. I drove by, or was driving to, in the neighborhood of Herndon along Blackstone, and I just kind of took a detour through Pinedale. I was there a long, long time ago. I want to say like 2nd or 3rd grade. I was a migrant student, so I bounced back, at least in my early life. Excuse me. I'll give that as a background. In my early life, we bounced back and forth between the Central Valley and the Imperial Valley. Indio, California. If I have any of my relatives out there, shout out to Indio, Barrio 48. You know what's up, like that. So I was back and forth, and we picked. My dad went where the work was. Our family went where the work was. And when we were done, we bounced between the two areas, the two valleys, as the work afforded us. And so some of you are going to ask, well, how are you at Central? Well, eventually, and through not a good reason, I lost my father in an accident when I was 9 years old, and we became stable. Not in a good way, because obviously that wasn't good. But when I lost my father, my mother decided to live here, which is where her family was from, Highway City in Central Unified. And we became stable, meaning we didn't go anywhere else. We stayed. We couldn't do that anymore. I was a single mom with 3 kids, and we lived in Highway City, and we grew up in my grandparents' home off of Fairmont and Polk. And I went to Teague Elementary, and that was the greatest degree of stability I'd ever had after the most unstable moment of my life. So I went to Teague. I've seen the other schools that I grew up with, friends that have gone to those schools. I see the schools that we're building now. They do not all look the same. And by the way, they don't all have to. But they do need to be equal. They need to be treated the same. They need to be given the same thing so that each kid in that school system receives the same quality of education that another child receives. A student like Rachel Ann's at Liddell should be given the same quality of instruction and facilities and everything else that a kid at Herndon, Barstow, or Houghton Kearney, or Biola, or Madison, or T gets. It's that simple. If we're not working for that, why are we here? And why are we talking, and why are you listening? Ask yourself the question. Why am I going to spend my time listening to this guy talk about things we need to address if I'm not at least interested and maybe cognizant of the fact that we actually have to do something about it? Last time, number 6. Inequality of schools results in a lack of cohesion and unity in our community. There are some that clearly feel left out. I was here when they built Rio Vista, and I know for a fact, because I went to LCAP, that there were people at LCAP felt like, okay, that's the shiny new toy and system over there, and everybody wanted to go to Rio Vista. And that's the same thing that happened with East Campus, and we're going to do it again if we build another high school on time. Everybody's going to want to go to the new one. So how do you solve that problem? By making sure that each one is modernized, up to date, and treated adequately, where kids are given the same quality of education regardless of the neighborhood school. And that's a joke, by the way. Regardless of the neighborhood school in which they have to go to. That's 6. We're doing good. Number 7 is I have to say something about Veterans Day, because we are actually broadcasting live on Veterans Day. And I'm a veteran, and I'd feel pretty bad if I don't give a plug out, not for myself, but for the brothers and sisters that have done the job, many more adequately than myself, and many that should be recognized. We'll get to that. Number 7, we're going to get hyper-specific here. So if you're one of my listeners and you're not Central specific, but you do realize that some of these issues are yours too, in Fresno Unified, in Clovis Unified, in a bunch of different unifieds all over this community, all over this region. These last 1, 2, 3.5 will be hyper-specific to Central and Central High School. Here we go. Meat and potatoes after a lot of thought, a lot of learning, a lot of synthesis, analysis, and here we go. The West and East Campus solution is now, and I quote, a 21-year, decades-old problem. Quote, the West and East Campus solution is now a 21-year, decades-old problem. Tripled with the fact that we now have the West Arts Center. So we have 3 campuses that we bus kids to and from. We need 2 fully modernized, comprehensive, and I quote, equal high schools now. As one teacher pointed out last week, and I agree with her entirely, she said, we need them yesterday. And we did. And we failed our students in this community because we didn't actualize that. We didn't act on it. And I'll be the first to say it was my fault too. I'm alumni and I watched as this went on. I thought it was going to get done. I was hopeful. I was optimistic. I inserted myself and tried. I was on committees. I was on superintendent advisory things. I involved myself. And I'm still waiting on results. So, West and East Campus Solution Central is now a 21-year problem. Quote the Raven, it is a problem. It fundamentally affects all of the ones that we have addressed up until this point. You can see how they're tied, and they are cohesive in scope when we discuss these 9.5 theses. Number 7, again, the West and East Campus Solution is now a 21-year problem, and we need 2 fully modernized, comprehensive, and equal high schools now / yesterday. Little levity for the moment. Obviously, I'm very serious and very sincere about my assertions. And I'm broadcasting you live again. Thank you, Christine, for the thank you. If not me, then my brothers and homies in arms, brothers and sisters. Deadly serious, and I'm broadcasting on Veterans Day for a specific reason. Everybody out there says they love vets, and they appreciate what we've done. I'm not asking for anything at all. I'm just asking you that you inform yourself and you address these issues. I need nothing personally. I don't want anything from you personally. I simply ask you as a vet that if you can trust me to go get shot at on the other side of the world, that if I bring an issue to you, it's because it's entirely true and needs to be addressed. That's what I'm asking. Nothing for me, nothing for anybody else. I'm just asking you that you address issue and that you raise issue and you find out for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Ask questions. Inform yourselves. Be a stronger, more informed community. That's all I ask. At number 8, we're almost there. So we talked about West and East Campus and how we need to remove that problem and create the solution, which is splitting them now to address many of the other thesis points that we've addressed already, because they will solve a lot of them if we can get that done now. Number 8, we need a 3rd high school. 3. Quote me on that, 3. We don't need 2, meaning we're going to build another one. We need 3, because we're at 4,300 students and growing. Now, I don't know about you, but it is not okay, and it is not a good education system if we're dealing with thousands upon thousands of students at each high school. The Goldilocks zone, and you can quote this, the Goldilocks zone for us should be no more than 1,500 to 2K at any one time. And if we reach 2K students at the high school, it should automatically trigger us having to build another high school. Otherwise, you fall behind and you never catch up. Oh, wait a minute, that's where we are now. My apologies. We're already there. So let's put that in place. Let's make that a blueprint for us. Let's say that no matter what, the minute we get to 2,000 students at the high school projected, and we know that in advance because we know growth patterns, then it automatically triggers a new high school. Quote that. So for right now, we need 3. We're going to need 3 going forward. There's no question about it. We need to split the 2 we have now, which is 0.7. 0.8 is a 3rd high school. You're going to like this for some of my homies out there that have been in the district long enough to have been paying on multiple bonds. We need a 3rd high school with our money, our multiple bond monies. Let that savor for a little second. We need a 3rd high school with our multiple bond monies. It needs to be completed as promised when it's promised. Again, because we've already been through that. I know I have been promised for quite some time a new high school for over a decade. And it was about the housing market crash, and now it's going to be about the Governor Brown. He's not releasing money. How the hell is it that Clovis built a brand new state-of-the-art facility in the same time that we were supposed to build a new high school? How is it? And you say, well, that's Clovis. I don't give a damn. They're building something and we're not. How is it that Hanford
has Hanford West now in that same time frame that we were supposed to have built a new high school, and we didn't? And how is it other schools in Bakersfield and to the north of us have built and completed brand new high schools in that same window of time? Do they not have the same governor? Did they not deal with the same housing market crash? Or perhaps we're just isolated in an alternate reality where we're the only ones dealing with those particular issues. Because on the surface, it's really obvious. Other systems, other education systems have constructed and built new high schools, but we have not. Again, did something click and did something happen and we were transported en masse to an alternate reality where we are the only school district in the valley over 21 years that could not build a new school. Over the last 15 years, could not build a new school. Over the last 10 years, could not build a new school. I'm asking you. There you go. I'm asking. I got another comment right now, and I got a text. Thank you again for the service. I really do appreciate that. It's not like I'm disrespecting that. But any veteran will tell you, we don't need thanks. We need action. We need you to get up and say something. We need you to be strong. We need you to be a citizen and speak honestly and forthrightly about the things that we're dealing with. That's all we need. So ask those questions. Why us? Why just us? Why have we not been able to? So, redo. Not doing too bad. I've got 13 minutes. Number 7 and number 8. The West and East Campus solution is now a 21-year problem. Quote, we need 2 fully modernized, comprehensive, and equal high schools now / yesterday. Number 8, a third high school with our multiple bond monies needs to be completed as promised because we're tired of being promised things and then not delivered. We are not going to go forward being promised things anymore and accepting it just because we have to, because we're a captive audience and we're just happy to be here. Wrong answer. Number 9. This one's good. Number 9, to wrap up. The new high school needs to be further north. We talked a little bit about that with Swainbo. Let me get hold on a second. My Blake Shelton tea. If you watch The Voice at all, it's BS Productions. Blake Shelton Productions. That's hysterical. I don't have initials that can play on words like that. RM Productions doesn't work the same, although the initial's good. A moment of levity for my crew out there. So BS Productions, I'm having my Blake Shelton tea. Mystery herbal tonic. Because I really, really love this one. The new high school needs to be further north. The current site, quote, for the new campus is too small and it's too close to the East Campus. Don't take my word for it. Drive out there yourself. If you have elementary students, if you're there now, if you're alumni and you remember where we went to school, drive out there now. Take a look at the site. And you'll come to full realization that it's going to be small before it begins. It will be too small. I quote, too small, and it's too close to the other one. How do we build going forward from that? It'll be a mess. When will the mess occur? 5 to 10 years. Oh, by the way, most of them won't be here by then making those decisions. So you and I will be left holding the bag on that decision, just like we were left holding the bag on the East Campus. And even though the East Campus has done its job, it was nothing special. It was not big and beautiful. It was not planned in advance to adjust to our growth pattern. We didn't even get the damn stadium right. We screwed that up. This was from prior administrations, by the way, so I'm not holding the people there now accountable. But I hold for a pattern of accountability. We find ways to not get it right. We find ways. I don't want to do that anymore. You should not want to do that anymore. A lot of people in our community do not want to do that anymore. So, again, number 9, the new high school needs to be further north than what it is now. We have a massive locus of population along the Herndon corridor, and we're going to relegate those students to at least a 15, 20, 30-minute run from their area, maybe along Herndon and Milburn, back to Grantland, and going south by the stadium. That's not going to be a quick run. If the system talks about neighborhood schools, where's the neighborhood school? For those on the radio, you didn't see I'm also doing faces to go along with my diction. So neighborhood schools, it's only applied as needed or as beneficial. If we're talking about neighborhood schools, why are we building a new high school 5 minutes from the other one and away from a massive locus of population along the north? Doesn't add up, does it? No, that was a rhetorical question for my audience. 9.5. 9.5. I've got 9 minutes. 9.5. Nobody's giving me that, by the way. Somebody needs to tell me why it's 9.5 theses, not 102 or 3 or whatever, and specifically why 9.5. I just need a name. If you can give me the person's name, you get a free shirt. 9.5. This is what we do because 9 addresses the issue of building the high school to the north. There are locations further north that can be sought after. And I know we can gather land and property further north at a good price, if not cheap. There's a novel concept in a community where people in a community really, really wanted the education system to prosper, and they either gave land or they sold it at a steal. When's the last time that's happened? It's called lack of trust. We don't trust anymore. So we're less likely to do something out of the goodness of our heart, not because we don't care about the students in the system, but because we refuse to give more that goes less. Doesn't improve the situation. If it's not going to improve the situation, why are we going to do it? That's why we don't have that anymore. But there is area north of where they're looking now, where the proposed site is, where they've begun building. That's not done, by the way. It can be moved. Quote that. 9.5. Here's the solution, because I'm not offering anything that I don't have an answer for. If I don't, I'll walk it back and say, my apologies, I am wrong. Because I'm a veteran and I have no problem saying if I'm wrong or right and moving forward without any personal or self-interest. Nothing to do with that. 9.5, we build on that location, the Grantland location by the high school stadium, build a state-of-the-art, blue chip, first class, regional, envy of the valley sports complex. What does that mean? We talked a little bit at the back end of the last show with Swainbo and overtime. I don't know if we got to that during the regular hour. Real simple. When our students walk on the facility or resource or material in the form of athletic competition, when we compete in the league we're in, our kids, for the most part, are not walking into equal. How does that work? I keep saying that, right? Equality. My world is all equal and green. Equality. Let's give our kids as good or better than anything that Clovis Unified or Fresno Unified or any Unified has to offer. Yeah, I said it. And it's out there. Let's give our students, and I'm not talking about 20 years from now, 5 years from now, 2021 or beyond. I'm saying now. Let's do something right now. Because the kids that are there now will not see these things. And I've heard a generation of kids say, yeah, I thought that was going to happen. It never happened. We lied to them. We failed them. I own that. I didn't say enough. I didn't do what I'm doing now. I should have done that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. My apologies to my community. I apologize. We didn't do anything. We have the opportunity to do so now. Let's not fail our students. Let's give our kids facilities and resources that are as good or better than anything Clovis Unified has to offer. So now the next question is like, well, how the hell are you going to do that? Real simple. Instead of doing 3 high schools and every single one of those high school high schools is as good as Clovis North. I'm no fool, and I'm realistic. I know that can happen, and it definitely can happen overnight. I believe it can happen. It just can't happen immediately. And I'm talking about right now. What can we do right now? This is what we can do right now. Instead of doing that for 3 high schools now, which would be extremely difficult and costly and probably not possible overnight, what we can do is do it in one location, one place, share facility amongst the 2 high schools that we should have and the 3 that we will have going forward. They use the regional sports complex much in the same fashion as other schools use multiple schools using a stadium for football. Woo, running out of time. That happens. Let's get the best baseball stadium, baseball diamond, softball diamond, soccer fields, wrestling room. There's a novel concept. We don't even have a wrestling room. Yet we're asked to compete against the state's best area and the best league, and we don't even have a wrestling room. We have a multi-purpose something or other. Let's build our kids one location that has the best. Let's give our kids the best at one location. What it does is it allows us to give our kids right now, not tomorrow, not 5 years from now, right now. Let's give our kids something that they can be proud of right now. Let's show them we actually give a damn about them and not make an excuse how we're going to pass it on to another generation. That sounds familiar, right? Let's do that now. And then over time, let's get a plan in place that adjusts and accommodates and acclimates to our growth and our pattern so that eventually we can do that at multiple locations, multiple sites, 2 high schools, then 3. Here's something for my alumni friends. Could you imagine taking Kauffman Stadium and making it into something really, really unique and special? I can. I can see it in my head right now as I'm talking to you. I see it. It can be done. Is there a plan for it? Hell no. Why not? Because we just don't care, or because it's not in the plan. We need to start caring. 9.5. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm running out of time. I'm 2.5 minutes. I have 9.5 theses in front of me that I've constructed over many years and put them in a form that are digestible and understandable. They're still more to be fleshed out. That's a fact. And I will. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post them and I'm going to put them on the SuperMex page, on my Facebook page, and I'm going to start disseminating them out into the community in a variety of forms. If you want them for yourself, please email me or message me and I'll get them to you. Or go over the show again if you want to listen to it. There's more to them, obviously, than just the simple lines that I've given you. There's a lot more to it. Can't do it all in a 1-hour format. It was hard enough doing 9.5. But this is a plan. This is a blueprint. Heaven forbid that people in this community, somebody in this community that grew up here, that has grown up here, that's been here forever, actually might have a good idea that we might be able to use and to sustainable and go forward. The people that run this show need to start listening to people that are actually in the show. And then maybe, just maybe, you might have a greater sense of trust and community up and down the ladder. We did have that at one time. It wasn't perfect and it wasn't ideal, but we definitely knew who we were. And we definitely felt at the end of the day, you can go have a conversation with somebody that look you in the eye and they tell you the damn truth, even if it wasn't pleasant. I'm going to wrap up with my 1.5 minutes because I'm going to give a shout out to the men and women in uniform serving all over the world. It is Veterans Day. I had a great time yesterday at Biola. I'm going to shout out to Biola. I was a keynote speaker for Mr. Mike Oda and that community. It was one of the best days I've had in a long time. I appreciate the respect. Mrs. Morita, she's a 93-year-old lady, grew up in that generation, gave me an incredible compliment. I won't share it with you because I don't want to make a big issue of it. But that lady gave me a compliment, and it about hit me to the heart. It hit me right in the gut, hurt me. I'm not going to thank sponsors today, but thank you. But let's think about that generation and how we all know how great they were. And let's start acting like that generation. We all kind of know who they were and what they did, but we don't behave like them anymore. That's what I'm asking of you. That's one vet to my community. That's what I'm asking. We're done. SuperMex is out. I will post these. Some of you will have more questions. Please feel free to call me, 906-5399, or hit me up on Facebook. All of the above. This is going forward. I need your help. Let's start acting like that generation. SuperMex is out. Not going to do overtime today. We're wrapping up right here. For those of you that are watching, I appreciate it. If you really, really understand what I'm trying to tell you, I cannot be any more serious than if I'm sitting here in front of you right now looking you in the eye. Everything I've said today is with conviction and sincerity. I mean it. And I'm going to do something about it. I'm asking that you help me do something about it. You call me, you message me, you ask me, you talk to me. I'll give you information. We'll coordinate. We'll talk to people. It's already happening. I've had a lot of people over the last month or two since we started the broadcast, started the show, that are beginning to stand up and say, that's enough. I want to see this happen. It's going there. Let's all get on the same train. Let's all move it. You know, inertia, like I said at the top of the hour, right? Inertia. We're moving. Please help me. Please involve yourself. Please ask questions. Please make our district, please make our community something more than what it is now. Thank you. Thank all my veteran homies out there. You guys have a great day. Bye.